What's your name?
Blake.
Jenna Stannis.
The Liberator.
Kerr Avon.
Villa.
Too many ifs for my taste.
Gan.
Zen.
Destroy Blake.
Until one of us is dead, there'll never be a time when I won't be right behind you.
Hello, friends. If this episode of Blake 7 looks a little bit different to you, no, you have not gone crazy. That's mostly because I'm trying to avoid the automatic copyright claim that keeps coming up every time I upload one of these episodes. But, at any rate, it's time we get on to episode 7, The Duel. So it appears that Cygnus Alpha wasn't the only episode to engage in just really bizarre tonal openings. Since we open on a dying world that looks like something out of Macbeth before two witches begin discussing the use of their power and the fact that they cannot rest until they've used it all up. Yeah, apparently we've got magic in Blake 7's now. Okay, fine, whatever. They've taken a prescient interest in the 3 new spaceships that are orbiting their planet. It seems Travis has been setting a trap for Blake, sending pursuit ships to hound him at every turn, slowly forcing him to this remote sector of space, which has succeeded. Going to level with you, Blake. I've run out of time to style my hair, and the crew are completely exhausted. We need to rest. Carry the 4. Don't think about Callie. 48 hours should do it. Alright, we'll give it some time for the ship to recharge, and we can go down to the planet and go have a nice away mission. Please do go away. You're starting to drive me crazy. It's a machine. That can't happen. And you should know. If you're trying to insinuate that I am a machine and you are human, I will take the compliment. But yeah, this has been Travis's plan all along, to deplete Blake's energy reserves and lay an ambush so that once Blake finally has to rest and recharge, he will be ready to strike, and moves in for the kill while the ship remains completely unaware of his presence. Incidentally, if you were questioning whether the Federation was evil or not, apparently mutoids run on blood supplement, taken from living people. So they're commonly referred to as vampires by the civilian population. Yeah, when your super soldiers are powered by living people juice, maybe you're the baddies. Just a thought. Blake, Jenna, and Gan teleport down to the planet's surface, discovering the bizarre stone markers. Gan spots the witches watching them and goes to investigate, but doesn't find anything. Afterwards, he postulates that maybe his limiter is malfunctioning. Oh, poor Gan, you have no idea what's going to happen to you in next episode, do you? But while down on the planet's surface, they also notice Travis's pursuit ships moving to attack, so they teleport back up to the Liberator and prepare for battle. But the situation is pretty bad, since their energy reserves are almost exhausted, and they don't think they can stand much of a chance. But Blake checks with the battle computers aboard the Liberator anyway.
Battle computers have tactically assessed all 4,988 parameters. The only viable choice for survival is surrender.
Great. Logic says we're dead. Logic has never been able to explain what that means. Well, Blake, if you want to find out firsthand, that is an option. But Blake and his crew engage in some clever tactics, only activating the force wall, aka the ship's shields, just as the energy torpedoes are about to impact to conserve on energy reserves, even if it still causes them to fly about like they're on the Starship Enterprise. But that gets old fast, so Blake discusses tactics with Callie and Avon. Assessing that only one of the ships has been firing at them at a time, it seems that Travis is holding his energy in reserve and plans to finish Blake personally. So, chooses to charge the only ship that hasn't fired at them yet, assuming that will be Travis, and hoping that they will survive a head-on collision and be able to break free.
Target ship is underway. She's turning.
He's running. There's nowhere to run, Blake. Calculate speed and course.
Time to start 3 and rising. Course 000. They're coming right at us.
It was in that moment that Travis realized he done goofed. But before they are successfully able to commit suicide, both ships begin to lose power and slow. And we get some really blatantly obvious padding as the witches use their power to stop this ongoing battle in space, and bring both Blake and Travis to the surface of the planet. Alright, gotta get it right. Alright, listen up, dearies. We've brought you here so that we can have a diversion from your plan to destroy each other and learn valuable life lessons. So yeah, 2 of the 3 witches from Macbeth are able to prevent Travis from killing Blake, and we learn that as long as they're on this planet and in their power, they will not be able to do violence to one another. So Blake asked the obvious question. I would like some answers. So we learn that the witches' goal apparently is to convince Blake and Travis not to fight with each other and just go their separate ways. Yeah, I don't think Travis is likely to make nice somehow. The one in white is Cinefar, and the gray lady is Jirok, the last 2 survivors of this planet's original inhabitants. They developed weapons so great and powerful that they rival anything the Federation's been able to achieve. But they were eventually forced to use them, which led to the complete destruction of their mortal enemy. The remainder were killed off slowly by radiation, so they are now a dead world. These 2 apparently somehow got magic powers as a result, and have sought to try and teach others the futility of war and conflict. As the 2 ships' crews are forced to watch what's taking place on the surface of the planet, it becomes clear that Blake and Travis's positions are irreconcilably different from the other. One seeking freedom, one seeking order through the government. And that they would probably eventually have great armies that would follow them since they are charismatic enough personalities. And Travis maybe less so. So, to resolve the conflict, the witches suggest a simple trial by combat. To teach both of them the death of an enemy and the death of a friend. They're given simple tools for their survival and are teleported to somewhere else on the planet, where they're given permission to engage in mortal combat. So the crew of the Liberator, helpless and unable to do anything, are forced to watch an episode of Blake 7 along with us. I mean, I could think of worse fates. Jenna eventually finds Blake in the wilderness. She's here to serve as his companion that will die if he fails to follow through on his convictions. And one of the mutoids from Travis's ship has joined him to simulate the death of a friend. Although, as Blake observes, how do you teach the death of a friend to a man who doesn't have any? While Travis puts all of his years of Minecraft skills to the test by harvesting random stuff from the environment, the crew of the Liberator continue to try and find a way to override the power that's somehow preventing them from being able to act. Unfortunately, not even the technical prowess of Avon is able to help them. But I think I can come up with a way to make this a little bit more enjoyable. 4 random people from 2 different ships. 2 mortal enemies. In a battle to the death, they will have to work together to overcome the obstacles, the animals, and each other to become the survivors of Witch Island. But seriously, with the dark night coming on and the screams of horrible mutated monsters, Blake and Jenna decide to take refuge up in a tree for the night. Also taking refuge in a completely different tree, Travis and his mutoid companion actually have a fairly nice character moment. We learn that mutoids have their personality and identity erased completely as part of the augmentation process. Supposedly, no one is able to learn who a mutoid was in their past life. But Travis was willing to pull some strings and dig up who she actually was in her past life. A fact she finds completely uninteresting and unremarkable. And we almost see Travis realizing that he's lost his own life and his own personality in service to the state, just as thoroughly as this mutoid has. Meanwhile, back up on the Liberator, Blake's crew watches with all of the bored interest of people who have literally nothing else to do. And we get one of my favorite moments in the entire episode. Well, take this and a ham sandwich and go stuff it. Have you thought of another plan? Yes, I'm going to get some sleep. How can you sleep with all this happening? It's all what happening? Blake is sitting up in a tree, Travis is sitting up in another tree. Unless they're planning to start throwing nuts at each other, I don't see much of a fight developing before it gets late. Never evolved, Avon. Do you care about anyone? I have never understood why it should be necessary to become irrational in order to prove that you care, or indeed why it should be necessary to prove it at all.
Oh gods, do I want that man.
But, as Avon predicted, nothing really much happened during the night, and they're off to go try and find Travis today, who seems to be in the process of making a whole bunch of Looney Tunes traps. We also discover that his companion has drained the blood from several bats that were flying around during the night, since her blood supply is running low.
My function will be impaired if I don't get further serum soon.
Perhaps that can be arranged.
Even Blake's crew are starting to question if they'll ever finally find each other, or if Blake will fall for any of these traps in the first place. But clearly Blake has seen The Hobbit Part 2, so decides to climb a tree to see if he can get a better vantage point, leaving Jenna alone on the ground, leading to an unfortunate moment of women in refrigerators for this episode. So with his princess in another castle, Blake has to go try and find Jenna. Fortunately for her, Travis subscribes to the live bait is better principle. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean the mutoid doesn't want to drain her of all of her blood to replace her failing blood supply. But she gets waved off by Travis, who tells her to go wait and set off the trap. Blake, having seen the smoke from the obvious trap fire, goes to try and save Jenna nevertheless. Unfortunately for Travis, he forgot because of her weakened state, the mutoid had disadvantage on strength rolls, and Blake rolled a natural 20 on open lock, despite not having thieves' tools, and the battle is on! The four of them engage in a pretty lame fight, honestly, especially Blake and Travis with their little spears who can't seem to stab each other, even though that's sort of what spears do. But it leads to Blake ultimately having Travis dead to rights. But Blake has clearly read this module before and takes the opportunity not to kill Travis, which apparently was the correct action to take, causing him and Jenna to be declared the victors. As a reward, Blake requests that his ship's energy cells be restored and he be given a chance to make good his escape, which the witches gladly grant him. And Blake and his crew proceed on to their next adventure. Travis seems to have learned nothing from the experience, merely lamenting the fact he didn't have a chance to kill Blake this time, and not even concerned by the death of his underling, though the witches assure him that they will restore her to health and put both of them back on their ship, long enough after Blake has escaped for Blake to be safe. And Travis is warned to never return to this place, while the witches fade into the mist. Despite him ignoring her protests, the mutoid is told that she will probably be court-martialed and likely found guilty for her failure to obey Travis's orders. And unfortunately, mutoids who are discharged from the service have no purpose and are usually decommissioned. And on that rather depressing tone, we end the episode. Something I'm starting to realize is all of my favorite episodes of this show are gonna be the shortest ones to talk about, because they're just too good to really comment on. But I'll try and find something critical to say about this episode anyway. The two beings down on the planet helped drive the story forward and served as something of a Greek chorus. I like them as a narrative device, but I really would have appreciated their backstory being elaborated on a little bit more, and possibly a better explanation for where their powers came from, other than, well, we can just do magic, I guess. This particular episode didn't give us much insight into the Travis of character, though just wait, there is an episode later that does a much better job at that. But I did like getting to see the mutoids fleshed out a little bit more, and especially this actress's job at playing an inhuman killing machine, just spot on. And in an interesting piece of trivia, I don't know if you noticed that bizarre headpiece she's got. Apparently, the makeup and costuming artist had a nightmare trying to make sure that it looked correct in between every take. I would never have noticed, so hey, that's also pretty cool. Given the nature of what they were trying to do, I understand why Blake's crew couldn't be more involved, but It really is always kind of frustrating every time we have to cut back to them to go, hey, still part of the episode. Something I think they could have done, and would have also helped with some of the blatant padding, would have been to have Blake's crew talk to the other mutoids aboard Travis's ship in something similar to the Christmas truce from World War I. You could have the two crews trying to come up with plans and ultimately finding common ground in their own helplessness, and maybe even realize that they're not as different as they might first assume. But I guess that would probably have been a little bit more complicated than the writers wanted to get into, with the focus being on Blake and Travis's fight. But for all the pacing can be a little lapse, this is a really good episode, and I thoroughly encourage all of you to watch it with me over on the BBC's official YouTube page. At any rate, that's our episode. On to episode 9. What can you expect from episode 9? Well, the Federation proves to be more sexist than we thought. We get a reappearance of Servalon. Yes! And we also find out that the Liberator doesn't know what to do with a really high-quality sex bot. It'll make sense after the episode. Anyway, I'll hope to see you all in episode 9, Project Avalon. See you next time! Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the series so far. And, if you want to check out more episodes, they are freely available on YouTube. And hey, who knows, maybe you'll see something I didn't see in an episode. In which case, feel free to discuss it in the comments. And, if you're gonna be stopping by my comments anyway, why don't you go ahead and click that like and subscribe button. Or if you want to be extra special awesome, feel free to stop by my Patreon page. I make a lot of videos on other stuff as well as showing off my awesome cosplay. But at the end of the day, I hope you had fun, and I'll see you on the next episode of Blake 7. By the way, all requisite links will be in the description below.